I'm talking about mindfulness, meditation, and fasting. And it might be exactly what you're thinking about. It might be something totally different. That's why every meditation is a treat. You never know what you're going to get, just like a box of chocolates. So the question of the week is, what is the difference between mindfulness and meditation? And I had that question in the last class, in the kids class earlier today. And then earlier than that, in the young kids class, I had a question that I really liked, which I haven't gotten in a very long time or ever, because I cannot remember having this question before. The kid, he's like 7 years old, he asked me, does Kung Fu make you happy? And he was asking me personally, does Kung Fu make me happy? And the answer is yes, but also I think he's asking just in general, should Kung Fu make you happy? And depending on a couple of variations, the answer is yes. But this is kind of related to what I'm going to talk about tonight. Because when I'm talking about fasting, I know some of you probably have done intermittent fasting before and you're all excited to hear about it. That's not what I'm talking about. Or you've done fasting and you're very afraid of thinking about fasting, like me, hate it. But I'm talking about fasting not so much, or not specifically from food, but fasting from like everything that is extra. And in meditation, we usually use the term letting go. And fasting, at least for me, feels very much like a chore. I'm like forcing things away. But the couple of times that I have fasted and didn't hate it that much were when it was an accidental fast, where I just on Sunday forgot to eat breakfast and I didn't eat lunch until late. And it was like, oh, it ended up being like I just fasted all day long and it's not that bad because I wasn't thinking about it. But on those days when you're forcing yourself to not eat or not eat what you want to eat or whatever, it can really feel unpleasant. It's the same thing in meditation. It's the same thing with so much in life. When we are forcing ourselves to abstain in a way that feels like a chore, then it's very hard to keep that up. So that's not really what I'm talking about, but I get that that is the emotion that is elicited very often when we talk about fasting. When we say meditation, there are thousands of styles of meditation. The style that we do is specific and simple, and that's why I like it. Life is complicated enough. I don't like a meditation technique where I'm trying to do all kinds of different stuff, visualizing and chanting, and I'm praying to this person and then thinking about that person. It's just like, let me just breathe. It's literally just sit and breathe. And then if you have something else that you really like that works for you, great. But this works for everybody, just breathing. And that is, by definition, letting go of everything that is extra. And then eventually, focusing on the breath might even become extra. But for now, we'll just stay with that. It's like this is one of the simplest, most profound, most impossibly perfect things that you can do with your life, is just sit and breathe. It is like the ultimate experience of your beingness, of your humanity, because you don't really need anything else in this moment other than the breath. You don't even need to drink water or eat. You can wait to do that. But you have to breathe. So in this moment, when I'm focused on this breath, it's like I'm kind of fasting from everything extra, letting go of everything that's unnecessary, and just having like the purest, most perfect experience of life and existence. And I should just finish the talk there and meditate, but I'm going to keep talking. So, does Kung Fu make you happy? When the kid asked me this, I answered it in this way. And he's like sitting like this, listening to me. So you guys all have to do the same thing. When you ask me if Kung Fu makes me happy, of course I'm going to say yes. It's what I do for a living, and that does not make most people happy. I get it. Most people's jobs is not a source of happiness for you, but the reason it's my job is because I love it. And I woke up one day, I was like 18 years old, and I had 2 jobs kind of before this, and I thought, I don't think I can do like a job. I'm just not that kind of person. I'm not like a job kind of person. I'm just going to do something that I really enjoy doing. I'm just going to do Kung Fu for a job. And so I just stayed with my Sifu for 10 years, learned how to do it, learned how to do the business side of it, all that, and did it. And the reason that I love it is manyfold. The physicality of it is fun. And this is the same with Jiu-Jitsu and the same with Tai Chi. One of the reasons that it makes me happy is because movement makes me happy, and that is one of the surest ways to get out of a funk for almost anybody, is to just start to move, and especially in a way that is challenging and vigorous, because this kind of necessarily gets you out of that state of mind where you're unhappy and puts you in the present moment and just gets the blood flowing and makes you feel better. Sometimes in practice or in whatever exercise you're doing in the moment, it feels very hard, but you'll always feel better after you do it at least. So the physicality of it. But the meat of my answer and what is related to what we're talking about tonight is by practicing meditation and by practicing awareness in meditation and mindfulness in meditation, this is not a guarantee that you will be happy, but just simply meditating will probably make you happy, but it is the opportunity to choose how you want to be. So my Sifu gave this great talk before I even started practicing martial arts, and the title says everything you know about it. Happiness is a choice. And the first time I heard that, my mind was blown, because I thought, up until then, well, happiness is just a happy coincidence. Like, I'm lucky if I just happen to be happy that day. And I wasn't like a particularly depressed person at some points in life, yeah, but generally speaking, it's just like, I just go through my day, and if I'm happy, it's just because I woke up on the right side of the bed that day. But I heard this, and I heard the talk, and I was like, oh, so if I am mindful enough to choose the thoughts that I have, then I can choose happy thoughts. I can choose to be happy and choose to let go of things that make me unhappy. And this really is a very simple way that our practice can make us happy, is that it allows us to choose happiness. And then there will be days that you don't feel like being happy. There will be days where you're just like, I feel like just being miserable. And you can choose to be miserable too if you want to. That is the brilliant thing about this. And as we are human beings and we're having a full emotional experience, it is fine to experience all those things. But what is not fine is to be forced to have to dwell in some kind of mental or emotional state that we don't really want to be in. You might choose to experience, and then you're like, all right, I've had enough of this, I'm going to let that go, and then choose to move on and be happy. And that's it. So, that's my little note here. The book that I'm holding is Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. This is one of the best books on meditation, and it's a collection of talks that were written down by Shunryu Suzuki, who's a really brilliant Zen teacher. And I'll just kind of go through the first couple of ideas in this book and relate them to this idea that we're talking about tonight. So, in the prologue, he mentions beginner's mind. He says, in the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in the expert's, there are few. And I talk about beginner's mind all the time in the dojo, in our practice, and in meditation. It's like this idea of being so awestruck and like, this is a new fun experience. The beginner sees everything as kind of being exciting, right? Versus the expert who's done it before is like, I already know how to do this punch, or I already know this. You can imagine watching a movie like 100 times and still being able to enjoy it, not just because it's a really good movie, but because you have this beginner's mind, and every scene you're like, what's going to happen next? So this is kind of one of the opportunities in our practice. Now, it's interesting because in this statement, the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. That makes it sound like your mind is full of possibilities, and it's like the beginner's thinking, maybe this will happen, or maybe that will happen. And that might be true. But the real reason that in the beginner's mind there are many possibilities is because if you truly have beginner's mind, there's nothing in your mind. It is open and free to do anything. Versus in the expert's mind, maybe you have a lot of thoughts or a lot of things that you're thinking about. Maybe you just have the one thing, but that one thing is taking up space and not allowing for anything else. So the beginner's mind is really kind of this state where everything is possible because there is nothing in the way. And when we talk about the idea of mindfulness and meditation, the question of the week, what's the difference between mindfulness and meditation? I think that there are many answers to this, and I'm not giving you the answer, I'm giving you my answer for today, which is that meditation is a drill or an activity that helps to instill or deepen our mindfulness. And it helps us to practice mindfulness by causing us to be focused and in the present, right? Mindfulness sounds like my mind is full. And that might sound like your mind has lots of thoughts going on. But if you fill your mind with only what's happening in this present moment, then you are totally present, and there are no distractions, and you don't have excess thoughts. All you have is what's happening here and now. And that's not to say that you should never plan for the future or anything like that. It's to say that we spend generally way too much time thinking about things that are not happening now. Whether it's that we are fantasizing about something that may or may not happen in the future, or we're thinking about something that happened in the past, all of that is illusion. What's happening right now is the only real thing. So that is the practice of mindfulness. On some levels, just allowing this moment to completely fill our awareness. And so when we're practicing meditation, we're filling our awareness with the breath and the sensations of the bodies, of our body, not everyone else's bodies. Okay, so that's beginner's mind. He goes on to talk about posture, and I'll just point on this or touch on this real quick. So in meditation, one of the main points that Suzuki makes in this book is literally just sitting is it. That's all you have to do. You don't have to achieve or accomplish anything in meditation. You don't have to even have any kind of mindset. You don't even have to focus on the breath. And as you have experienced before, sometimes you're not focusing on the breath when you're supposed to be. But just sitting. Just sitting in the posture. And you don't have to have any specific posture, but a posture that is solid, that is comfortable, that allows you to remain still and focused without having aches or without having to move around. This is it. On some level, that is all that we're after with meditation, is just sit and have correct posture. And it's very simple. Now, in some styles of meditation, they'll count and move their hands to count on fingertips, or they'll hold a certain mudra or hand position, or they'll count breaths or prayers on beads, and there's some kind of movement or specific position, and that's not wrong. And yet there's something very freeing about just sitting still and not doing anything fancy. Just sit, and that's it. The next section is breathing, and I love the first sentence here. What we call I is just a swinging door which moves when we inhale and when we exhale. So this is kind of aspirational thinking, because really what we call I is very complicated. When I start talking about myself, I don't know about you guys, but I've got a whole bunch of baggage that comes along with that. It's my whole past and everything that I want for the future and all the mistakes that I made today and all this stuff. But when we meditate, there's an opportunity for all that to disappear. When the ego drops away, and what we call I is kind of just that experience. We're like a swinging door that has no judgment. The breath comes in, we move like this. The breath goes out, we move like this. Now, I just said we're not moving, so I have to explain this. Your consciousness follows the breath. And that doesn't even necessarily mean that the consciousness is moving, but for the case or for the purpose of this idea, let's just say the breath comes in and it pulls the consciousness this way. You're just aware that the breath is going in. The breath goes out. It pulls my awareness this way. And in that way, when we become this inanimate object without judgment, without desire, without anything that we're trying to do, we're literally just swinging with the breath. That's really nice. Again, freeing. There's nothing for you to do. There's nothing to achieve. It's just being here, sitting, and following the breath. So some of you might think, I don't like the idea of just being a swinging door. That sounds like, no kind of life to live. Again, I'm not saying you'd be like this all the time. I'm saying that to be able to practice this in meditation, to be able to let go of everything that is in excess and just be with the breath, and have your awareness follow the breath like a swinging door, just in and out, nothing extra. Beautiful. I'm going to skip this one. Mind waves. There's this idea that when we think of ourselves as a wave, the ego is like a wave. When the ocean creates the wave, it curls over. I think of this huge, beautiful wave that you could surf on. I'm not good at surfing, but I like to pretend someday. And so this big, beautiful wave comes, and then it crashes on the shore. Dramatic. Everyone's like, ooh. And then the wave just recedes back into the ocean. And that's it. That's that wave's entire life. And it really made a splash. So when we think of our ego in our lives, we think of it as all kinds of stuff. Usually there's some self-importance wrapped up in there and all the stuff that we want to achieve and all that. But we really are just like a wave, right? The ocean kind of creates this wave. It's this little piece of the ocean that goes off and then goes back. And this is kind of like as we are in life. We're just a piece of the universe or the divine or whatever you believe. We kind of, branch off, break off, do our thing, and then we return back. And the wave does this without fighting. The wave just returns back because it feels very natural for it. Now, our mind in meditation creates so many waves, but because the ego is wrapped up in it, we get attached to each one. And our mind creates this wave, and we're like, no, that's a separate thing from the rest of the ocean. It's a separate thing from the rest of my mind and my awareness. Like, this is a thing that I have to think about and get attached to. But every thought is just like that. It's just a wave that goes out, and then when we are meditating, we want our experience to be like the wave that just returns back to the ocean naturally without effort. It's like there was nothing else for it to do except return back. And in that way, it's like you're feeding your thought back to your general awareness or your being. And so that is a nice way to think of returning to the breath in a way that is not a fight. It's not a struggle. It's just returning because that is naturally what it is. And the next chapter, I think, is Mind Weeds, which is related to this. It is. So, mind weeds, he says, you should rather be grateful for the weeds you have in your mind because eventually they will enrich your practice. I talk about mind weeds all the time because it kind of gets to the essence of our meditation practice, which is not that our meditation is a practice of just being mindful and completely clear-headed and having no thoughts. It's the experience of these weeds growing up, and unfortunately for most of us, a constant fight where we just like hacking at weeds all the time. But in this idea, Suzuki talks about you dig up the weed and then you bury it in the earth, and then it provides sustenance for the plants that are going to grow. And when we think of that in terms of our meditation, instead of fighting against the weeds, we accept them. We swallow them. it becomes sustenance for the rest of this meditation or for a future meditation. And this is happening in reality because when we recognize a thought and then we practice letting it go and come back to the breath, that is making us better at meditation. That is helping us to be more mindful and present in a future meditation and in the rest of life. It would be really nice if you sat to meditate the first time and you just had no thoughts, no distractions, and you were just perfect at meditating from the beginning. And you were enlightened like that, and then you just walk around like Buddha for the rest of your life. That has never happened and will never happen to you or anybody else. What will happen is a series of bad meditations where you're constantly kind of dealing with these thoughts that are like mind weeds that have a very negative connotation, right? This mind that keeps growing back, it keeps showing up in the same place. Well, maybe you shouldn't be burying the weeds in the same place, but this weed keeps showing up, and so we just accept it. And that's very different from resisting it. So when we are aware of the breath and we lose it, and we practice coming back to the breath, that is kind of the essence, again, of meditation. It's not never having distraction. It's letting go of distraction and returning back to whatever it is that we're focusing on. So when we're being mindful in everyday life, it can be like taking meditation into everyday life. You're choosing a thing to be mindful and aware of. In meditation, it's the breath. Maybe in life, like in practice, it's I'm focusing on the way that I'm moving my body, or I'm focusing on what my partner's doing. I'm outside, I'm just focusing on the way that it feels when my heel touches the ground as I walk. And so in that way, we're just being totally full, filling our minds with the presence of whatever is happening. And again, fasting from everything that is extra. So I'm going to make a suggestion to you that I am fairly certain very few of you are going to take. But here's my suggestion. And maybe some of you are already doing this, and you know what I'm talking about. But I'm sure that a lot of you after this are going to get in your car. The first thing you're going to do is turn on something noisy. It's the radio, it's a podcast. You're going to get on the phone and call somebody. You are, if you're a bad person, you're going to get in the phone and start texting somebody while you're driving. But there's something that's noise in your head. You cannot actually meditate while you're driving because you will crash instantly, but you can use driving as an opportunity to fast from everything that is extra. And that starts with noise. Just don't turn anything on. Just drive. And I have had the experience of doing this. I did this actually where I just drove. I used to drive an hour to my Sifu school and an hour back home when I was in school. And I would drive in silence. Sometimes. Sometimes I'll listen to a book. But when I did it, for an hour of just being there in silence, it is very similar to just sitting in meditation. And when you do this, and then you start to allow silence to pervade more and more spaces in your life, not just your meditation space, but then into the car or onto your bike ride, or the next time that you're walking down the street, or whatever it is, that place that you go or that thing that you do where you instantly start to turn on noise, you'll start to notice that the more places you are in silence, the more focused and present you are, and the less noise you have in your mind throughout your day. And you will notice this definitely in meditation. If you go a week, just 1 week, people, you can handle this. 1 week where you just don't listen to whatever it is that you normally listen to, and you don't fill your brain with noise, you will absolutely notice a big difference. Now, the difference that you will notice is after having done this for a while, and you're in this really nice space, and then you think, all right, I did that, and then you go back to the noise, then you're going to feel like you're going insane. You're going to have so many thoughts, your brain is going to feel so busy, and you're going to be like, why did I do that? It didn't work at all. That is the sign that it is working, because you got your mind to this place where it was so quiet and so nice, and there was very little extra going on there. And then you started bombarding it with all this nonsense, and then you feel stressed by that. That it's not a bad thing. It's a recognition that you really got to a nice, peaceful place, and then you ruined it. So, I've done this many times in my life. I cycle between silence and noise, and I try to keep as much silence as I can. And that is what we're going to do for the next 15 minutes. We'll be sitting in silence. But try this. I'm sure that I can't talk most of you into fasting from food, and I'm not even going to try to do that myself. But maybe you'll fast from extra noise, and that will help you fast from extra thoughts. And it will probably feel like a chore in the beginning, but allow it to feel just like a nice part of your meditation practice, where you're just letting go of what is extra. Like literally when you get in the car and you're reaching to turn on the thing without even thinking about it, that's the extra thing that you don't need to do. You can just sit and just be there. You'll be so much better at driving. And then when you get home or wherever you're going, you'll be in a nice peaceful place. And it's like the meditation that you do right now is going with you. And it's going to another physical space. And then maybe you can take it with you into your home, and maybe you just go to sleep tonight without watching TV or doing anything. And then you'll sleep better, and then you'll wake up the next day and you'll think, this is nice. Maybe I'll do it again today. We'll see. Sit comfortably. Does that go any lower, Sam? It is as low as it goes. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Tall, close eyes, spine straight, eyes upturned, relax, watch the breath. Let go of all thoughts, worries, and cares. Be here now. When your mind wanders, just treat it like that wave that's left the ocean. It's just going to come right back gently, without a fight, without judgment. Or you can imagine yourself as a swinging door, and your awareness just moves with the breath. Just continuing to come back to that breath as many times as you can.